Hi, everyone, and welcome to this week's Tuesdays with Terica. Woo-hoo-hoo. Hey, my guest today is a wonderful woman who is offering some information that you are really going to enjoy. So please help me welcome Miss Virginia Rector. Hey, lady, how are you this morning?
Good morning, Terica, and thank you so much for this invitation.
Well, I am so glad that you were so gracious to accept. I just think that you have some amazing things going on. And so, with that, one of the books, as you are an author, one of the books that we're going to be sharing about, well, two in particular, but one we're going to kind of lead with is E Town. And with that, you have a short little intro that we're going to play for our viewers so that it will give them an opportunity to know what the book is about. Okay.
Thank you.
How can I serve you? How can I serve you for tweens and teens coloring book? E-Town and Tree. Interpreting and responding to various situations often hinges on when, who, what, how, and where something occurs. As our minds navigate from one place to another, it is interesting how suddenly a phenomenon comes into view and our awareness is enhanced.
Okay, so how awesome is that? I think that was a really good way of introducing what the book is so that anyone that has a concern about how to get started in some things, that's going to actually be the foundation that kind of lets them know what you're offering and the information that you're able to give. So as we're getting started with our questions, tell me what inspired you to be an author?
Well, I actually not only listened, but I heard a younger man that I have a great deal of respect for. And actually, he works in the Sparmer Greenville area, um, who is in music. And he said, I don't want to leave this world with all the knowledge and information that God has given me and not share it with others. So he's quite a bit younger than me. And you can imagine if he made that statement, I'm like, okay, well, maybe there's some things that I need to be trying to share as well. And the best way to do that was to put it on paper first. So that's how I kind of got started. And I really, Terica, God knows the desires of our hearts, and
Mm-hmm.
I love that. And I had an opportunity to go to a conference,
Mm-hmm.
and at that conference, my publisher was there doing a workshop. And I'm from the old school, and she said after the workshop, she said, I'm going to offer 3 more weeks of a free workshop on how to write a book.
Mm.
And that was the carrot, and that was the hook. And so free, I'm getting all excited. I really didn't know at that moment what I was truly stepping into,
Mm-hmm.
but I was willing to take the challenge, and it was at the right time, and everything has to do with timing.
I think that is so awesome because, as a woman of a certain age, sometimes we feel like our time has passed for certain things. So I really want to commend you for taking a chance on you. And it doesn't necessarily matter about you know, everybody wants to be on the best list. You know, everybody does, I'm sure. But because you still have a message, and because you still have a word, and you still have a way of encouraging people, it will forever be. So that is amazing. I just applaud you for doing that. Let's talk about, because you've done a couple of different books, but we're going to kind of emphasize E Town today, or right now in this moment. E Town is about a character named Teresa. Where did Teresa come from? How were you able to come up with that character?
You know, Teresa could have easily have been Terica, but that letter T just kind of stood out.
Mhm,
Um, and just thinking in terms of what would make a good acronym for a name,
mhm,
and that's how we use Teresa. But Teresa also blended in with the tree.
mhm,
And once we saw that character, envisioned that character in our mind, and we just started seeing how adolescents sometimes are so conscientious about their appearance, and you know,
mhm,
I'm so skinny, I'm so tall, I'm so this, and I'm not that. Then Teresa just sort of came into form,
mhm.
and that's how she was designed.
So with Teresa, being the focal point of the story, how do you see her? What invokes her as another child in the community? Like who can she relate to, other than an awkward child, a child who's trying to find themselves, a child with many questions? I guess it can be pretty much anybody, right?
Absolutely, all of the above, all of the above, and you're so right, you're so correct. Um, just going into the mind of Teresa, that was phenomenal to actually become Teresa
Mhm,
and to try to think and to speak because she was the protagonist for the story.
mhm.
And she's actually not talking, but these we're reading her thoughts. So
Exactly.
these are all of her thoughts, you
Mhm.
know. And how well do we know how we have thoughts? We frequently we always have thoughts, but we never really reflect on what a teenager or what a younger person might be thinking.
Do you
And so that's
think,
why it's written that way, you know, in the like my name is Teresa.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to butt
That's
in while
that's
you were
okay.
talking,
That's
but
okay.
a thought just kind of crossed my mind. So even though the character is female, uh,
Hmm.
do you think the book can also benefit a young man as well? Do you think they can really pull some information from it that they can relate to as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. The book was written to be translated to any gender
Mhm,
because of her experience,
mhm,
which means it could happen to anyone. It has to do with change. It has to do with transition. It has to do with finding purpose. It has to deal with adjusting.
mhm,
And we find the more we work with young people, that's between them formulating as an adolescent,
mhm.
the reality of many of them, if you're in the school system, having to uproot themselves and to leave one home place to go to another to attend a foreign school, a school that they're not familiar with, to leave their friends. So that could happen to any child, any young person.
So you, just because I know a little bit about your history, you were actually um starting your journey on education or having an interest in the youth at a young age. Can you share with our viewers, how soon did you know that you had a gift and a heart for people, young people?
Terica, I'm sure you can relate to this. Um, the two of us, our mothers are now in heaven, but it's that's where it all starts. It began at home. That was our first teachers. That
Mhm,
was my first teacher, and that was who I actually observed and I watched, and I
mhm,
watched her mannerism, and she loved young people.
Mhm.
and I didn't know that that was going to fall on me. So that became something that I just couldn't run away from. I cared about young people. I always found myself, when Shirley Caesar talks about how she played as a little girl, I guess preaching and teaching or whatever, I was always doing something similar with youth myself.
Mhm.
I joined the church and was baptized at the age of 5.
Wow.
So I just it was just instilled in me. I could have run away from it, and of course, she allowed me to be young. I mean, you go away from home, you're going to be young, and you're going to try a few other things, but you always come back to your training, what
Mhm.
you were trained, and what you really have a compassion, have compassion for. And so I know that that all had to do with what I was taught from an early age, and it
So
just
you
started to grow from
saw
there.
various things as well, right? Like I can only imagine in my mind when I'm thinking and hearing you talk that your house was the house that everybody came to. Yours was the house that everybody found safety and comfort. Am I correct? Is that kind of where the birthing of it all started more specifically, or in church, or all of the above? What are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I tell you, without you having been reared with me, you actually said it very correctly. That is exactly what happened. It was a very warm home. It was a very musically filled home. My brother was a musician.
Mm,
His band actually practiced in our home. My mother was cooking 24/7, so there was always food or something to eat there. There was always the smell of fresh brewed coffee, and that was a rental house. That was a old. When I go back and look at the pictures now, it was an old, shabby looking rental house that was kept extremely clean.
mhm,
There was no grass on the front lawn, but everybody felt welcome, and everybody gravitated to
mhm,
that house. And when we moved into our first newly built home, which was a small house, very, very small, the same thing happened there. When I met friends, they always felt welcome to come to our home. And I'm going to date myself by just sharing one story about when there was a time when the gasoline prices were so astronomical and there was supposedly a shortage of fuel. There were some girls who actually came to our home in like the midnight hour from trying to get on campus at a local college,
mhm.
who I had met in the community college. And they came to the door and they said, "We're so sorry, but we had to catch the bus from point A to here at the time that the buses were running." And they kept on trying to explain. My mother said, "Just be quiet and go and get in bed." So we had an extra bed for them to go to sleep in. And that's just the kind of home that I was reared in.
I think that is so awesome, because you don't hear of that type of hospitality as much anymore. And I'm not saying that people don't do that, but we're in a society now where we don't even know our neighbors most of the time. So it's hard to open your home, to people that you may not know on a personable level when you don't take time to even know the people next door. You don't even know their name. So I can only imagine how warm that makes your heart feel when you think about what was versus now. I'm going to throw a little question in that we may not have gone over, but I feel it kind of pressing in my spirit, and I hope that I'm saying it in a way that isn't offensive to anyone. But because you have had so much interaction with young people, and because our society has changed so much, I recently have come to the knowledge of our young people who are struggling with identifying who they are. And that's why I think E-Town is such a great platform and opportunity for younger people to have an experience with, because they're not able to identify with who they are. I have heard that some are not sure if they're male or female, if they want you to even um, address them as he or she. What are your thoughts in coming from a biblical and a professional and for one who cares for young people, how would you encourage them in a time where there's so many voices that they are hearing about who they are, to try to lead them back to a place of God and peace?
It's interesting because that is a universal question at this time. And in the first book that I wrote, How Can I Serve You? There is an example of a young lady and I walking down the hallways in the school. And she has poor self-image, and I wanted her to understand or to communicate to her that we are image bearers. We're made in the image of God. And so I wanted her to feel better about herself. I wanted her to understand that she was a very beautiful person and to not have low self esteem. And a lot of it has to deal with self esteem. But you do have a lot of parents who do not attend churches. They
Mhm,
do not attend church online. They do not attend church in person. So they don't have the same upbringing or teaching that we have. So I think it's very important first to establish a relationship with that individual and to talk and speak and share that they are loved, to share what agape love is all about, and to allow them to understand that they can talk about things, that they can express themselves, that they can share what some of those inner feelings are so you can reach a little bit deeper.
mhm,
Because a lot of the times it's very easy for them to close up and to shut down very quickly, to
mhm,
think that they're being judged, to think
mhm,
that they're being put down.
mhm.
So we have to really ask the Lord. And as one of my mentors said to me, before we do anything, before we take any action, we must pray.
Mhm.
Pray first, and then we be surprised. We'll be surprised how the words just come and how the right words will come.
I think that's really good, because even in my conversation, which I don't have the exposure probably as some people would, but I my whole point and purpose is to make sure that whoever I'm talking to at any given time, that they feel like I am their safe place. And that, does come without being judgmental,
Mhm.
because we, like you said, we don't know people's past. We don't know what they've gone through. We don't know their circumstances. But just because of the books that you have written about self image and loving yourself, and how to, when you can't speak the words out of your mouth, hearing the voices in your mind or in your head, and knowing the right places to compartmentalize them, sometimes kind of maybe help steer you in the right direction. And that's why I was just really impressed with the book, even just the title, How May I Serve You? I thought that was just an coming from such a selfless place of, I'm going to put me on the back burner so I can give you the best of me that I have. I'm going to put me on the back burner so that you can see my heart versus everything else that I'm doing. Because if I'm not showing you the core of who I am, then why am I doing this? So, how can I serve you? I know that it was meant first as a way for leadership, but who else do you think can benefit from How May I Serve You?
Well, the person that's being mentored could read it. I tried to write it so it wouldn't be offensive, so it wouldn't be a hammerhead kind of book.
Mhm,
That they would see some compassion within the book. But ministers and everyone, just to give them a second perspective, another way to look at dealing with young people. Um, my husband often talks about church hurt. Um, and my philosophy is it is so important for young people because that's the group that I really enjoy working with. That when they leave the church and move on with their lives, whether they go off to school or make some other choices or whatever after they graduate from high school, that they leave with a warm feeling, that they feel good about their experience there at the church.
Mhm.
Now, grant you, sometimes because I'm a strong advocate, surprisingly, I get backlash. Um, and recently, I think one of those backlashes was from someone who is choosing, in terms of their gender, to go a different way. My thing is, we have to be certain that we do still show love and
Mhm.
that we embrace that individual, and not treat them like they are COVID, that they are, a virus. I think that you have to have real conversations. I think you have to have boundaries. I think you have to have, I know you have to have standards.
Mhm.
There needs to be conversations about guard standards versus the world standards.
Mhm.
But you have to get to a place where the two of you can sit down and feel comfortable, even if you disagree,
Mhm.
because you know, and I know, that the word of God will resonate.
Mhm.
It will resonate. So we have to plant the right seeds, but we have to make certain they will hear us. And we have to get them to that point of listening to hear us.
I say all the time because I used to uh, get so frustrated with God. And I'm telling them and I'm saying this and nobody's listening. What the world? But he had to calm my spirit and say, hey, you know what? Your job is to plant the seed and water.
Mm-hmm.
That's all
Mm-hmm.
I need you to do. And
That's
when
right.
I really got the concept of it's not my responsibility to change people, it's not my responsibility to let the world know that I'm right. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not
Mm-hmm.
in every situation.
Right.
It really
Right.
took the burden off because all I am is a vessel.
That's
All I
it.
am is a vessel to be used by the Lord. And again, I just think that it is just so awesome and amazing that you have put pen to paper guidelines, putting questions in people's mind to make them, as they're reading, to have an aha moment, to see things a little different than what they may have thought before, what they may have learned before, to reconsider a different way. So I just applaud you for taking the challenge and meeting the need for community and for our society and for the church. Whether you feel embraced or not, know that it is a good work that you have done. And so, again, I am just so grateful and so honored to have you here on this episode. We are going to feature your books. We will have them up. We will have them, the information available to share with the public as they deem to see need of it, because I really want you to have your voice heard in a different way. And so, again, I just thank you so much. For our final words, is there anything that you would like to say to the people? If even if you want to give them your the way of they can contact you, or however, you're more than welcome to do that at this time.
Thank you. I just always give out my email address that I use all the time. I have other ways of contacting me, but I don't check them as often as I should. But that Rector 2003 at yahoo.com
Mhm.
has been around for a while, and I do, um, daily, 2 and 3 times a day, I often check that email. And I just want to invite folks, in terms of E-Town, to go on Amazon.com
Mhm.
and to look at the comments that others have written. There are keywords in those comments from the readers. Some have said that it's an awesome gift. In this case, they said for a preteen girl. But then there's someone else who had younger readers, their nephew and their niece, and they have a parent who was willing to sit down and read the book to them. Um, One individual says change can be good as God is moving you and opening your experiences. It's a good way to look at things from a different angle, and to put your thought into words, because there's activity sheets at the end of that book.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, One says the comprehensive questions and activities. They refer to the activities again. And there's a teacher who actually was one of the first ones to read it. And she caught on to the fact that I was trying to make the book fairly versatile because I use some things, I use simile and metaphor. And
Mhm.
those were some things I had problems with when I was writing, when I was, in my adolescent years in school. What's the difference between using like and as?
Mhm.
So the words like and as are used pretty frequently in the book, and that's a good way if any teachers have like teach at Title I schools where they're struggling readers or kids don't who don't have children who don't have the same resources.
Mhm.
It's a good lesson to
Mhm.
sit down from that particular book and look at Teresa and look at her story and look how she speaks,
Mhm.
and then to deal with the like and the word as, and then to look at nature, something that we are surrounded by, that
Mhm.
we overlook, the beauty of a rose. In the Bible, we have the burning bush.
Mhm.
So it's just being able to observe and notice your surroundings more frequently. And then perhaps even take a plant. I don't have a green thumb, but you sure do have to put a lot of nurturing and a lot of care. And my understanding, plants like to be talked to. So I try to talk to them every now and then. I don't know if it does much good, but I do try to have a little conversation. But being around those types of things that are growing and that you have to give some nurturing. And again, you are serving that plant. You're trying to help that plant to live.
Mhm.
So those are some things. But those are ways that people can reach out. They can contact me. They can go on Amazon. I appreciate this opportunity in particular to be here with you, for to hear your prophetic word, to you to speak life back into me. And I want to just add in terms of our hearts, for some reason lately it's just resonated in my mind that our hearts have to have ears.
Mhm.
So we have to listen sometimes with our heart when we are talking to people, and make certain that it's not about us, but it is about trying to serve them. So thank you so much.
You are more than welcome. Hey guys, I really, really hope that you have enjoyed today's episode. Miss Rector has done an amazing job in sharing her thoughts on paper. So please go to Amazon, email her for specific information. You know what? She might even come to speak at your church. You never know, or whatever, wherever your platform is. She might come and just share some nuggets with you guys. So keep that in mind as well. As always, I am Terica Talbert with Century 21 Blackwell and Company. I sponsored today's episode. Like, share, and subscribe. I love you guys to life. I wish you the best for your week. Until then, enjoy.